everyone, it's Aoife here, and on the 17th November, on a sunny, frosty Monday afternoon, we're nearly close to Christmas and we have a special guest in the studio. I know it's not Santa Claus, but he is better.
It's me. Hello everybody, welcome back to NLN CHATS with the Skills for Life program in NLN Tullamore. I am Eric Berkup-Loughlin and I'm here with a new co-host, the Stitches gamer girl, Aoife Fahy.
Hi.
Jeez, the budget must be shot, all these new hosts. On today's show, we got our most important guest yet. It's our regional manager, so let's not waste any more time. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Johnny. It's Johnny Pettit.
I've never been introduced as he's Johnny. It's a nice introduction. Good to be here, guys. How are you all doing?
Good.
Really good to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me. I hope I don't disappoint now.
No.
Let's see then if you're going to disappoint or not. So, for those who don't know you, who is Johnny Pettit?
Who is Johnny Pettit? So, where to start? I suppose I was born in County Westmeath, so I'm a Westmeath man. I can't say that we can claim to have huge amount of records and achievements in sport because, as you know, most counties in Ireland are judged by how brilliant they are in GAA, so we haven't got a huge amount of claim to fame. But we do have one Leinster title in football, so that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
So I'm born in Westmeath, and I have had a couple of different careers, and we might talk about them in a minute. But I suppose for the last 30 years, I've worked with the rehab group. It was called NTTI, or the National Training and Development Institute, when I started. And then it had just gone through a name change at that point. And then some years later, then in 2000, it went through another name change and now known as National Learning Network. So I've been working for this organisation for 30 years now this week. Mm. And I've had sort of a number of different sort of careers within the job here. So I haven't done the same job all of the time. So that's who I am. Currently, I'm the regional manager for the Southeast region, which covers Laois and Offaly as well. So hence, I'm in Tullamore. Yeah. That's the quick summary.
How did you start with National Learning Network?
It was kind of an accident. I didn't intend coming to National Learning Network. I was working in construction at the time. Yeah. So I'm a carpenter by trade. And I had worked for a number of years in Ireland and abroad as well. And when I was about 33 or 34 years of age, I was working in construction, doing well. I was doing a lot of joinery work. And at the time I was working for a guy and we did a lot of Bank of Ireland work. So one of the jobs I was doing, the last jobs I was doing, was travelling around the country to different Bank of Ireland branches. And I would go in then and measure up the whole bank, and then go away and make up a new counter for the bank. You know, when you go into the bank, all the people are sitting behind the counter and all that. Mm. So I would measure up and make up different units. And then we would go in for a weekend, clear out the whole bank, legally, that is.
Yeah.
And then refit out the whole bank with new counters. And we would work with painters, electricians and plumbers and all that, and revamp the whole bank in a weekend, so the business could go on as normal on a Monday morning. So that was the last sort of work I was doing in construction before I took the decision to say I want to do something different. I just had, and I don't really understand this bit, but even though I was really enjoying construction and I was quite good at it as well, it allowed me to travel and to work. Because once you're, work as in a trade, you can go anywhere and say, that's what I am, and just start working again. So it was really good to me. But in my early 30s, I just had this desire to want to change. And a guy who I know very well, a friend of mine, said, I spotted a job during the week in an organisation called Rehab Group, or NTTI, it was known at the time. And he said, it's for a woodwork instructor. I said, do you think you might be interested? And I said, I'm going to have a look at that. I just fancy a change. So I went for the interview. It was in Athlone. And I was successful, and I got the job as a woodwork instructor with NLN. And that was my first job.
What do you do in your spare life outside the centre?
So this takes up a good bit of my week, this job. In my spare time, mostly farming. I was brought up on a farm in Westmeath. I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters, and we were all reared on a farm. So we were used to farming and as children, we were used to, get out, do the jobs. And so I was used to animals and reared with animals all my life. So I have a small farm in a place called Mount Temple where I live. And in my spare time, I mind and manage the farm. It involves some work every day, but, at different times of the year, there are different demands. So this time of the year, it's reasonably quiet. Most of the animals at this time of the year are in-house.
Yeah.
So they're in-house about 6 months a year, and then they're out on the grass 6 months a year. So I keep some cows and a bull, and I breed the cows, and I keep sheep, and I breed them as well. So this time of the year, it's kind of quiet. Everything's in. Springtime then gets busy. That's when all the lambs and the calves start arriving, and it gets a little bit more busier. So I do lots of other things, but that's one of the things I do in my spare time. I keep bees as well. I've only sort of recently gotten into keeping bees. It's a little bit scary keeping bees and getting used to being in the suit and thousands of bees flying around about you and not getting stung. You get stung sometimes, but you get used to that too. So just getting into the habit then of having my own honey and all that. I do a little bit of gardening as well. In more recent years, I've probably become a little bit more interested in eating healthy. So myself and my family have started to grow more food in our garden as well. So eating healthy food. They're some of the things I do in my spare time.
Would you rather take care of do the farm or do NLN?
I'll tell you a story one time. There was a farmer one time who was asked, if he won the lottery, what would he do? Which is a question we often ask, isn't it? So his answer was, I would just keep farming until it's all gone. So the story behind that is that farming doesn't pay very well. Mm. So one of the reasons, that most people who farm part-time need a job in order to survive. Simply wouldn't survive. But I better be careful how I answer this question. I love working with NLN. But let me answer it seriously. They complement each other. So what I mean by that is that if you've had a sort of a tough day at work, going home and then working with the animals and being out on the farm, even sometimes if it's wet and mucky and, farming it can be wet and all of that.
Yeah.
It still feels good. It's sort of therapeutic.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah. I feel like that way with dogs.
Yeah, I tend to feel... Yeah. So sometimes instead of me having to go for a walk or purposely get exercise, I automatically get exercise by doing the physical work on the farm. So I feel good about being out on the farm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Most times.
Here's one for me. So you've been working in this field for over 23 years, which is incredible.
30 in total now.
30 in total now, yeah.
In this organization, 30 this week, yeah.
Ooh.
30 years this week, yeah.
Ooh.
The reason I know that is that the first week I started with NLN, I brought in a birthday cake of my son, and he was 1 year old. And I brought in his birthday cake the first week I was here.
Yeah.
He's 31 this week.
Oh.
So that's how I know by his age how long I'm here. So
wow.
It's 30 now, yeah.
So what have you learned about yourself during this time?
I like the nice, easy questions, guys. What have I learned? That I'm quite resilient. You know what I mean by resilient? That I'm tougher than I thought. I probably have more skills and more talent than I realised. Because I think when I started in NLN, I remember that first few months working as a woodwork instructor and being quite fearful about, will I be okay? Will I be able to do this? Will I work as a tutor, as an instructor? So over the years, as I've changed jobs within NLN, I've realised that I am actually quite capable.
Yeah.
And your confidence grows as you change jobs and do well. So I think that's probably been the biggest learning curve for me. Being more resilient, that I'm tough in the sense that I'm able to keep going, because sometimes we all can get a bit stressed now and again, and we can be challenged in our lives. So I think I found that I'm quite resilient, and I surprised myself in terms of how capable I am, that I could progress and do tougher jobs, I suppose.
Yeah, and it would link up into farming as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And again, the farm has been my constant all along. Remember I mentioned to you earlier, but it's been that therapy piece running alongside. So the greater the stress, the more the farming.
And now we're back to the NLN. So how is your role as regional manager different from, say, a centre manager?
There probably are lots of similarities. I suppose the obvious difference is that I don't have a particular centre to look after. So I'm not the manager in the centre. So I don't deal as much then with students or families or indeed the instructors. So But I do occasionally. So you remember when we were changing managers over here earlier on this year, I was here quite a bit. So that's one of the things that's different maybe, is that if a manager is missing or there's a change of manager in the centre, I might end up having to cover for it. But in general, my role is in the region is, I suppose, I have overall operational responsibility for the region. So what does that mean? It means that I have to make sure that all of the centres, that their budgets and their finances are working well. So we have a certain amount of money in each centre that we have to make work. So you have income, money comes in, and then money goes out. Same as if you have a job, you get paid to do it, and then you spend your money on accommodation or on your groceries or your food or whatever. Does that make sense? Or your whatever. So a centre is no different. It has a budget, and we get in funding from our funders, the HSE and the ETB, and then we spend money on running the building, running the centre, paying people's salaries. That's obviously one of the costs, isn't it, of running a centre? The people who work here have to get paid. So managing finances is one of the things I do. I engage quite a good bit with the funders, so I have to meet with the HSE and the ETBs in different areas. So in my region, for example, I have 5 different ETBs that I need to link in with. Is that okay? So Laois Offaly is just one of those. Kildare Wicklow, Kilkenny Carlow, Wexford Waterford, and Tipperary. They're all the different ETBs that I work with. So I have to keep in touch with them and the HSE and attend meetings, and they basically hold us accountable and say, well, we're paying you money, so you better make sure you're running the service very well. At the end of the day, the most important people in the service are you guys, because the service is for you. So one of the jobs, I suppose, that as a region manager I do is, as I work with managers and all the staff around the country, around the region I have, is to make sure that students are having a good experience. So it's my job to intervene maybe if something is not right or something is not going very well or a program is not doing well, is to get involved and support the manager.
Yeah.
It's a big piece of my work, really, supporting managers. So at the end of the day, while you might say I'm the boss of the managers, but probably more importantly, I don't like being seen as the boss, but I like being seen as the person who supports managers to make sure they can do their job. Somebody summed that up very well at one time, and it actually does make a lot of sense. It's clearing the way to allow managers to do their job. So if they get stuck and can't make progress, my job is to maybe make a phone call or send an email and help them so that something might be holding them up or blocking them, and it's to free them up to do their job. Because if managers are doing their job, my life is easier then, isn't it? Everything's going well.
Yeah. And speaking of bosses, who's your boss?
My boss then is a lady called Patricia Greeny. I don't know if you've ever met her. She's based down in the West, and her title is Head of Operations. So she is Head of Operations for NLN for the country, the whole country. And there are 5 of me, so 5 different regional managers, and the 5 of us report into her. So we meet then on a weekly basis. So I had a meeting this morning at 9 o'clock. So every Monday morning at 9 o'clock, our week starts with an operational meeting where we're giving feedback on our regions, and she's talking to us then about what's important from a national point of view. One of the important things is about running a service in the overall. There's a service in every county in Ireland, so there's 26 counties with an NLN service in them. I suppose one of the most important things we have to do is make sure there's consistency, that they're all being run the same. Otherwise, they could all start going off in tangents and doing different things. Does that make sense? Yeah. So consistency is really important. And so by us meeting and working through Patricia means that there'll be consistency in every region. So otherwise what would happen is I'd be saying, I'm just going to run my region the way I like to do it. And then it would become Johnny's region. But we can't have that. There's got to be, now I have some autonomy to make decisions, but we want centres to be run and the country to be run in a sort of a consistent way. So she's the Head of Operations. She reports in then to Director of Services, then a lady called Rita Day, or Dr. Rita Day, and she's the Director. So she's the boss of National Arena.
I think we have a lot of bosses.
Well, I suppose that's just the way there's a saying in Ireland that everybody has a boss somewhere, no matter what.
What changes would you like to see in the centre?
In this centre or any centre?
Mostly this one.
If I'm honest, I probably want to see the same changes in every centre.
Yeah.
Being really honest, because I would be maybe slightly unfair to pick out Tullamore. But
come on, you had to pick something.
No, but I will. I'm kind of picky or kind of annoying in some respects because I always want things to be better, and I really mean this. So in my life, generally, I always want things to be better. So for the people who report into me, so managers report into me, so do program development officers, so do psychologists, so do project executives. So I have about 16 or 17 people who report into me. But I always want to improve.
Yeah.
And I always believe we can improve. I was at a meeting one day with a staff meeting, not here, in another centre. And I remember us talking about the student experience. And I said about how we can make the student experience better. In other words, a better experience for you guys.
Yeah.
Not just in Tullamore, but around the region. And I remember somebody turned beside me. She was sitting right there like you are now. And she said, but the student's experience here is brilliant. And I said, that's great.
Let
And
me
I
hear
said,
for them.
and then I said to her, do you think it can be improved? And she said, no. That's where I struggle.
Yeah.
Because I really believe there's no such thing as it's brilliant. It can always be improved. So you asked me a question. What do I think? What would I like to improve?
Yeah.
I would like to improve the student experience. I believe that if you look at everything we do, in centres, the type of modules we deliver, how we deliver, like there's so many ways to teach people. We can use a smartboard. We can use paper, for writing on. We can sit around the table and have group chats. We can have podcasts. We can have so much things. So the newest term, if you like, or one of the more recent terms is Universal Design of Learning, or UD. Talks about the fact that if you go into a group of students in a room and there are 10 or 12 students in a room, there are 10 or 12 individuals. They're not a group who are all the same.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we're doing in UD is making sure that everybody understands that teaching people or helping people is about understanding people being different.
Yeah.
So one of the things we're doing is encouraging people to understand the notion of UD and UD principles. The other thing that I suppose I would like to improve is the input from students. So we know now that, especially over the last number of years, the students have so much to say, and Tullamore is a great example of that. And I really mean that. Tullamore have some amazing students, including your group, Skills for Life, who have lots to say and want to sort of inform, how things are done. Now, the way we talked here about changing the timetable up, and some people said, I like the timetable the way it was. Could we not have left the timetable the way it was? But one thing that Cian has been talking about, and all of the instructors here have been talking about, is that we want to make sure that the timetable is strong.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we can't have fun.
Yeah.
But everything we are doing should reflect learning. So there's a term called experiential learning, which means even when you guys are out for a walk with Matthias, so you go down the street, you're talking on the way, you're observing, you're talking about life. When I come in here to do a podcast, you guys are learning so much from even engagement with me. Do you know what I mean? And me with you. So the point is, there is so much learning all the time. So from a co-production, co-design point of view, it's that listen to you guys and taking on board what you have to say. We call it co-production, means working together. That's when really good stuff is happening.
Yeah.
And also, what are your thoughts? This probably just links up to what you just said. But what are your thoughts on how NLN can continue to grow and improve in the future?
At the risk of getting into too serious, I suppose, but I think NLN at the moment is going through a tough time from a funding point of view. So the level of funding we're getting at the moment per student hasn't changed in a number of years. We call it the capitation fee. So one of the things that I think has to happen is that we have got to sort of agree and negotiate higher levels of funding with the funders. I think we can keep changing the programs, if I'm honest.
Right.
I in the future, I don't see as many programs being centre-based. I think it's going to change up. I think a lot more training is going to happen in the community. And I think NLN will probably offer training in other education environments. So I think in the future, you will see NLN in schools and colleges, not bringing students from the community into a centre like this.
Yeah.
I think we will still have some centre-based programs, but I think they're going to be much more mixed and blended to allow people to, I would say, tap into training almost as they require it. I think this model of service we have at the moment is a bit school-like. I think it's required as well. I think a lot of people benefit from a year or 2 years in NLN, but I think we're going to have a lot more outreach programs. We have some models of service around the country that are working really well, called sort of outreach service, which means people come in and dip in and out as required. They don't have to be here all the time. But I do think sometimes you have to go to a centre-based piece first and then move to a more, it's almost like you have to serve your time. You have to do the hard hours in the centre and do your year or 2 years and then begin to move to a more blended, more flexible type training, I think. But I think we have to grow. This organisation is in place since 1948. That's when we were set up as an organisation. So what's 1948 up to now? It's 52 and 25, 77.
Yeah, it's around.
So it's about 77 years old at the moment. But and I've been there in this organisation for close on half of that.
Yeah.
But it's got to keep changing. It's never going to be the same. So the future of this organisation is going to be about still offering specialist training to people who have disabilities and people who have additional support needs, but in a much more flexible and responsive way. And I do think one of the key things we're going to be doing is around IT. I think how we use our IT and technology. I wouldn't like us to become very, very IT. It's all about the balance. Like, do you know what I mean? Sometimes the best sessions that you've had in your classroom has had no IT at all or AI or it's not right.
Yeah.
Just sitting around a table having conversation.
If you were a student and you had to choose one of the programs in here, which one would you choose and why?
Hint, hint.
Is that a loaded question, I wonder?
Just imagine young little Johnny Pettit.
Oh my God.
I mean, I'd have to choose skills for life, wouldn't I? On a serious note, I do think one of the most important things we have to do in centres, I'm sorry for giving you the serious answer, is that we have to offer a range of programs. We often picture this like a ladder, with steps on it. And it's really important that you get on the right step first. If you step up too high, you may struggle in a class and say, this is too much for me, I can't cope with this. But if you get on the right step, if you get on the step too low, you'll be bored and say, this is too easy. If you get on the right step, you're challenged at the right level, and then you can progress. So little Johnny Pettit, if he was coming in here, he would probably need to know what's on offer in advance, in access, in skills for life, fresh start, and then in skills for work, and then see where's the best fit. That's the honest answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tullamore are very lucky to have a selection of programs. We have some centres that are much smaller and maybe only offer one or two programs, and there's less choice there. So it really is about having choice, and then the right staff, psychologists and RO and instructors to sort of guide me and say, where do I fit? So you guys are lucky in the sense that you sound like you're really happy in the program you're on. You've nailed it, but don't forget that there will be another step for you in terms of where next.
What kind of activities would you recommend in here to help different students to develop their confidence and skills?
One of the things I would encourage, I suppose there's many, but certainly one of the things I would encourage is and I don't know how strong it is here, is the student group, the LSE, and the ability of students in here to work together. I think that's powerful. I think it's really, really powerful. I do think it's important to mention that, do you remember I talked a little bit earlier in the interview about co-production and co-design, this working together piece?
Yeah.
And I think it's really, really important then that collaboration of working together has to happen in a constructive way.
Yeah.
Because it cannot be about one or other saying, this is how it's going to be. So there's no point in me asking you guys, what do you think? And then saying, oh, that's lovely. I'd love to hear your opinions. But by the way, here's how it's going to be. I'm calling the shots.
Yeah.
That's not good. Then there's no point in having a situation then where all the students call the shots and say, we're going to party because we just want to have a good time. We want to have lots and lots of fun. That's not going to work either. So it's that collaboration piece that to me is becoming the foundation of the centres that are working really, really well. It's for students feel heard. So it's not about people go around saying, you need to behave, have manners. That's out of order, behave. It's about people sort of showing mutual respect for each other and realising that how you function in a centre is how you want to function in life. So if you're in a job, you want to be respected, but you also want to respect other people as well. So we would like to see centres as, to use the term, a microcosm of life. So whatever goes on in here should be a microcosm of the bigger life you're in, whether you're engaging with your families or in a job. This is how we should function. So I don't like the idea of somebody saying, I'm on a program, I'm in a room, I've got an instructor. I like the idea of being part of a family here, that this is like a community in itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think this is happening in a lot of centres. I think it's happening in Tullamore as well. I think Tullamore has done well even in the last few months. I get a really good sense of the energy around the place. But it's about building on that and saying, we all owe it to each other. So I'll give you an example. When it comes to something like timekeeping or what time we all start in the morning, that's a collective for me. I wouldn't like to say that's just the instructor's responsibility. I think it's up to everyone to show respect to each other, and everybody come in the morning at 9 o'clock or 9:10, so we're all ready to go together. So I see it then as collective responsibility, and that's powerful then. Because if somebody comes in then, like a particular student, for example, and starts messing, they don't have to wait till somebody waves to them and says, stop. Like, everybody, even their own peers then say, come on, there's no need to be doing that. Like, so all of a sudden you create this fabulous environment, where people just come through. One of the nice things we have is challenge. One of the nice things we have about the service is what we call a continuous intake. So we don't have a situation where every September the door opens and 40 new people come in. But in continuous intake, it means almost every week we have a new student. And that's lovely because it's continuous. You get this chance to we all on board each other, and away we go. One of the things I'd like to see happen then is that the more mature and longer term students then should be role models then for other people. So I hope I've answered your question. I know the question was around activity, but I just want to make one final point about activities. There's fun in almost everything.
Yeah.
Learning is so much fun. I left school when I was 18 and I didn't go to college. So I didn't go back to education until I was 34. By the time I went back, I had been in construction for years, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to write properly or not. I knew I could write, but I didn't know whether I was going to be like a squiggle that I could hardly follow it. So I remember being so nervous having a folder under my arm. I was 34. And I felt almost stupid going back into education again. But I went back and did a master's degree in education at 34 years of age. And then years later, I did another master's degree in business. So my point is that, there's no sort of limit to what you can do and what you can take on. So that's why it's the message I want to get across to people in centres, that your own goals are so extraordinary, like in terms of what you guys can achieve. And I think it has to be the message that all of the instructors get across to people, is that don't limit your thinking to what you can do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of course, be reasonable. You don't have to say, I'm going to be the president. You can be the president if you want, but we call them stretch goals. So set a goal, but then set another one above that again.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
And now we're going to change things up. We're going to go away from the NLN side and we're going to go over to the Johnny Pettit side now.
Okay.
So you said you finished school at 18.
Yeah.
And I also found here on some notes you sent for us that you also spent about 14 years mainly in Ireland, but also in America and Australia.
Yeah.
So how was that?
Yeah, I think I at 23, I hadn't left Ireland. I hadn't been in a plane, and I hadn't been out of the country at 23. And I remember at a certain point in my life then just feeling, I've always kind of gone with my gut feeling. The way sometimes people are very organised and plan. Sometimes I go with what I feel. And I remember at 23 feeling quite suffocated being in Ireland, thinking I really need to get away. Apart from the fact that I was brought up in a big family and there was 5 other younger kids behind me, so it felt a bit crowded at home. So I really felt the need to, I suppose, do something different. So my first time ever leaving the country was to go to America. My first plane I was ever in was a transatlantic flight. Usually people in their first flight travel over to England for an hour, but I went on a transatlantic flight on my own, and I went to America and I knew nobody there. So my first trip to America was for 6 months, and it was the first time I ever experienced being homesick.
Yeah.
I was working with a Russian guy up in the Catskill Mountains north of New York. It's a very long story. We won't have time for that in this podcast. So I think I endured all of the emotions you could endure as a young person making a break and getting out of home. I was extremely homesick, lonely, afraid, nervous, and anxious, all of those things. But I made a success of it. I within about a month of leaving home, I was working in construction in the middle of Manhattan, on the subway up and down cover Manhattan, which is a very sort of urban environment to be in. And by the time I left after 6 months, I had grown so much. Do you know what I mean? I had become so confident in my ability to be able to, if you can do it in New York, you can do it anywhere. Do you know what I mean by that? And overcome so many inhibitions and made so many friends. Drank a few pints. You do all the things that you do when the Irish are abroad. But I had so much fun. I remember I mentioned earlier in the podcast, one of the nice things about working as in a trade, as an apprentice or as a carpenter, means that when you go somewhere then and you can do the work, and somebody says, are you good, Chippy? Yes, I am. Start working. Do you know what I mean? So I found myself working in a hospital, hanging new doors and just doing the normal work that came easy to me. So that was that was that time. I went to Australia then some years later then, and I worked travelled around the world at the time. So myself and my girlfriend at the time were travelling, and we wanted to go to Australia, but we wanted to go the shortest way to Australia is through Asia, but we wanted to go by America because we'd been there before and we wanted to visit America again. So we ended up then, instead of going over and back, we ended up buying a round the world ticket. So the ticket then took us through America to Australia and then back home through Asia. So if you draw it on the globe, it's completely around the world. So when I was about 25 or 26, I flew around the world and in that trip stayed in Australia for about 9 months and worked in construction there. Another fabulous experience. But I have to say, probably the best experience of my life in terms of my own growth and gaining confidence was probably the first trip to America. That was the one that really made a difference. Yeah.
Now we're going to change this up a little bit again because you like sports, we found out.
Yeah.
Man United.
Oh.
Why? Oh, gosh. Like, I'm Liverpool myself, but I won't complain now because we're doing bad in our own way, but you can explain more.
Thanks, Eric.
I don't know. I think I mentioned that in my notes. I could be George Best. You know, as a youngster, George was this icon and this amazing guy. He was also a bit of a villain, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Incredibly talented, partying too much, and he probably cut his career short because he over-partied. I think it might have been a friend of mine then, my best mate at the time, who was into Man United. And sometimes you get sucked in by a friend as well or whatever. And I think maybe that led it. At the time I was into Man United as a young teenager, you'd hardly even see them on television. You might catch them for a few minutes on Match of the Day on a Saturday night for a few minutes, just the highlights. So you didn't see them very much. And you certainly didn't travel over to England to see them because that didn't happen. But so I just looked forward. It's a funny thing, isn't it? Once you connect to a team, then they were the team. So I loved watching sport. I love watching soccer, but there's something about when United are playing, then the heart is something a bit more, especially if they're playing one of the teams that you want to beat. You know, the way we all have our teams we want to beat. So I've been into Man United for years. I remember, you know, when Alex Ferguson came and they won their first title after a break of about 26 years. The excitement of winning the Premiership, and then they went on. We were really spoiled then. I didn't realise. I mean, winning Premierships was almost easy at one point, and then you realise when you stop winning how hard it is to win again. So we haven't won since 2011, I'd say.
2013.
13, is it? It feels longer. 13. It does. That's 12 years ago. I remember when they hadn't won for 26. I remember thinking that's a lifetime. We're halfway to that period already now. Again, do you know what I mean? So once you stop winning, it's hard to get going again. Right. But I have good banter. You know, one of the things I like about football is, you know, the way sometimes, and I shouldn't just stick to football, but you know, when you go into any pub or any training room, whatever, it's a great conversation piece, isn't it? Say, you know, I'm Arsenal, I'm Liverpool, I'm Real Madrid. You know, I'm from Brazil. You know, that sort of thing where people say, you know, I'm trying to think of the name of the guy, the Brazilian coach at the moment, the guy with the eyebrow.
Oh, Ancelotti.
Ancelotti, yeah. Apparently he's now doing okay. They're not overly mad about him. Do you know he's the first time they've ever recruited a non-Brazilian coach? They always recruit internally.
Makes sense.
Ancelotti is the first time they've ever brought in an external coach. So there's a bit of pressure on the guy.
There's also one I want to say, like, this is from my experience with football banter. So I'm obviously Celtic, right, because I'm Irish.
Yeah.
I was in Salou not long ago. I'm in Salou. I go into this pub. I see it's what's it called? The Celtic Rangers Derby. I don't know. But
the Old Firm.
Old Firm, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm going into this pub. I'm looking around. They're all Rangers. I'm the only boy wearing a Celtic jersey.
Yeah.
And the slagging I got was unreal.
Yeah.
Oh my!
Quite intense, that rivalry.
It is. That's why I was like, get me out of here quick.
Yeah.
As well as the last question I'm going to ask you now. Now, you've obviously been through a lot in your life. So here we go. What advice would you give someone who was chasing down a goal, whatever it may be, like living abroad, running, etc.?
I do think setting and achieving a goal is an amazing thing. I think I mentioned it in my notes that I trained and ran a marathon when I was 48. It probably was the most excited I've been in my life in terms of achieving something. Sometimes you achieve something, you can say, well, yeah, but you know, I was in a company and there were other people there and I was part of an environment. But there's something about a goal that you set for yourself, just for you, nobody else. Sometimes people would even say that if you set a goal, you shouldn't talk much about it. You shouldn't share it. That's just another suggestion.
Yeah.
You don't have to. But something about a goal, and I think when I ran the marathon that time when I was 48, was, the idea that nobody in my family was a runner. So nobody in my family has ever run a marathon or even a half marathon. I mean, nobody. No one in my going back, my uncles, aunts, grandparents that I know of anyway. Maybe I'm doing them injustice, but as far back as I can go, they haven't. And nobody else, in terms of my cousins or relations, whatever, except for one guy who is my first cousin who introduced me to running at the time. So he was the first and then I was the first on my side. So it's kind of special to think nobody has done this, So then I trained for months and months and months, and then I ran the first Dublin City Marathon. It took me 4.5 hours to run it, still a long time.
Yeah.
But who cares? I got to the end, 26.2 miles, whatever. So to answer your question, it's that excitement then of just saying, I started, I couldn't run a mile when I started. And then I was able to run 2 miles and then gradually built up, ran a half marathon and so on, and then finished it. So I suppose, I would say to people, don't be afraid to set goals. Don't be afraid to follow your heart. Like if something excites you in life, don't have regrets at some point in your life and say, do you know what I should have done? I've mentioned to so many people that I was in Australia. Australia's a good bit away. It's down the other side. It's down the back, as they say, And I've mentioned to so many people over the years in conversation gradually, it might just come up and I'd say, yeah, I was in Australia for a while. I'd love to go to Australia.
Would you?
No, they would say to me,
right, yeah.
I'd love to go to Australia. And then you think, well, why don't you? You know what I mean? Do it. I remember when I was working with NLN in 2006, I didn't actually mention this. I took a break from work.
Yeah.
It's called a leave of absence. So I'm unpaid and I leave work and they keep my job for me. And I did that for 3 years. And my kids were small. They were young teenagers at the time. But I had just the best time. I know, of course, you're going to say, of course you had the best time. You just stopped working. Now, I still made some money because I had to. I did some construction work. But during that time, that allowed me to train for a marathon. And I also took the opportunity to go with a group called NLN to South Africa to build houses for the people in South Africa who had no homes. I remember, it took months to prepare for the trip and raise some money and all that. But the experience of going and working in South Africa with 800 other people, all Irish, and we, all from the different trades, and we were painters and carpenters and different trades, if you like, blocklayers and so on, and building houses then for 10 days, and the excitement of doing that. So doing special things in your life is such a rewarding thing. It really helps in terms of your own growth.
Yeah.
It helps you as well, I suppose, around your own mental health and how you feel about yourself. So my encouragement would be, don't be afraid, set a goal, set a target. A lady called Susan Jeffers wrote a book one time where she said, feel the fear and do it anyway. So in other words, feel the fear, be nervous, but do it anyway. Yeah. I'm not saying to anybody here to take risks and risk hurting yourself for doing something silly, but I'm just saying in terms of life goals, don't be afraid to set yourself targets and say, you know what, maybe it's possible.
Do you think you run a marathon again?
No.
No,
and I don't need to really, Jen. I'm happy that I've done that. Now I set smaller goals. Like my daughter would say, I'd love to run a 10K with you. Yeah. So that that would be a new goal. Or, I like being on a bike more so now than running. Do you know what I mean? So, I enjoy cycling now whenever I get time, But no, I don't need to. Yeah. And I could, I'm sure, but I'm older now. I'm not sure I want to put myself through that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But I don't have regrets. I suppose that's the most important thing.
And I think that's it now, is it? Are you happy?
I'm really happy. This has been really good fun and I've really enjoyed, I hope this has been good for you guys. I've really enjoyed sharing some of my stories and my life with you. So thanks so much for inviting me in. Really, really enjoyed it.
That's good. Thank you. Thanks for being on, Johnny.
Stay safe.
And now we'll go to Aoife with the outro. Thank you all for listening. This is Eric Loughlin signing out.
Thank you all for listening to our podcasts. If you want to keep up to date with us, follow our Instagram at NLN Tullamore and subscribe to our YouTube Nashville Learn Network. Have a good rest of your day.